Hey guys, I'm Jaleesa and I'm back for another video. And oh my gosh, I have missed you guys so much. You have no idea. Fidget, I think it's been like, maybe a month since I last filmed. Yeah, it's gotten pretty bad. Basically, I got into this new therapy for my tics called CBT, and I have been super busy. And I haven't had much time or energy to film, but I think that's going to improve. I hope it improves lately, so watch out for more videos. They'll definitely be coming way more often. I'm so sorry I left for so long. Also, yes, I just got out of the shower. Fidget, I had time to film and I just couldn't wait. Fidget, so my hair's kind of wet and I kind of look like crap, but we're gonna do this video anyways. Fidget, basically what I wanted to talk about today is sort of reactions to my Tourette's and, you know, what kind of reactions I've gotten, how I deal with those, Fidget, how I want other people to react, and just sort of general stuff on, you know, the different kinds of reactions I get. Obviously, I can't go over all of the reactions I've ever gotten, Fidget, or how to deal with every reaction you might get if you have Tourette's or just another disability. But I'm going to try to go over the most common ways that people react and the ways that I respond to that. Fiji, and how I would like you to react. Now, I think it's important to note that although a lot of the reactions I will be going over in this video are bad reactions, Fiji, obviously, because those are the ones that are harder to deal with and respond to, it's important to note that most of the reactions I get from people are good ones, Fiji, or at least neutral ones. Most people when I go out in public, cats, are very good about my Tourette's. Fiji, I don't really have like whole crowds of people staring at me usually. It's not that everyone is constantly making bad comments, it's just that there's always that one in every crowd and they stick out amongst the sometimes hundreds of people I've passed that day that haven't reacted at all or have reacted very well. The one that's bad seems to always stick out the most. And there is always that one person that just doesn't know how to act, I guess. But if you're out in public with Tourette's or another obvious disability that you know you can't hide or has become obvious in some sort of way, I think it's just as important to acknowledge the people who react well or neutrally just as much as the people who don't react very well or react very poorly. So how do I deal with bad reactions? And I think the most common bad reaction I get is probably staring. And I'm not talking about just like people glancing because they hear that I've made a noise or whatever. That's completely normal and completely expected. If you heard one of my tics suddenly in public, you would turn around to see what that noise was, and I don't count that as staring. What I count as staring is probably over 30 seconds of like just, you know, yeah, just looking at you, or maybe people sometimes like look at me and make a face, they're just like, huh? And they just sit there like that. And it's super awkward. The most common thing I do, because usually people who are staring are sort of further away, I don't know why that is. If it looks like a curious stare, like they don't know what's going on, I just sort of smile and wave and say hi. But if they're being like obviously rude, or maybe I'm just not in a good mood that day, I sort of tend to stare back at them with the same face that they're staring at me with, Fidget. So if they're looking at me like, then I'll look back at them like, and it's super awkward for everyone, but it kind of teaches them a lesson that the way that you're staring at me is very uncomfortable, Fidget. I think it does a good job at showing that. Or if I'm having a really good day and they're, you know, close enough that I can go do this, Fiji, and I have the energy, sometimes I'll literally just walk up to them and say, hey, I just wanted to let you know that I have Tourette's. This is why I'm making weird noises or movements, and I just sort of give them that little bit of education, and if they have questions, sometimes I'll let them ask some questions, Fiji, sometimes I'll choose to move on with my day, and that aims to help them understand, you know, that I'm just a normal person in a body that makes movements and noises that I can't control. This also helps when people are sort of making like really rude comments, or like, you know, calling your names fidget, or maybe they're just asking like really stupid questions that aren't really questions, or they don't really understand. And that's the problem I find with a lot of people, is that they simply just don't understand what Tourette's is, or whatever your disability is, and because they don't understand, they decide to make fun of it or be sort of rude about it, And oftentimes, I'll just educate them. You're not obligated to educate them, but I rarely have problems with people when I do. Usually once people have a basic understanding of Tourette's, they treat me pretty well. Usually the problems I run into with people come from a lack of understanding. So the best advice I can give you is to probably educate just as many people as you possibly can. And then maybe the next time that they meet someone with Tourette's, they won't react quite as badly. And if you don't feel like educating them that day, I know I certainly don't all the time, then you can just ignore them and walk away. That's honestly probably the best thing to do a lot of the time. Another common reaction I can get is people asking me to stop what I'm doing in a lot of situations, especially if it's an environment where I'm supposed to be quiet. Like, quiet places in libraries, sometimes people without understanding ask me to shush. Or I know one day I was walking into a testing room at my college, and they're asking me to shush there. Or sometimes if I'm going to a talk, you know, where people are generally supposed to be quiet, people ask me to, you know, can you be quieter? Can you shush, And again, I just educate them and say, no, I can't, and if they have a problem with it, then I assert my right to be where anyone else would be. And probably the worst reaction that I've gotten a lot is people, like, workers in stores refusing to help me, Like, say I walk up to an employee in a store, and I'll be like, could you please point me to where the butter is? I don't know. And sometimes they just won't respond, or they'll walk away. Or I even had one worker who said that they would get someone else to help me in the back room and never came back. That's probably one of the most challenging situations that I have to deal with, because, you know, if someone's ignoring you, it's kind of hard to talk to or educate them. It's kind of like talking to a brick wall, to be completely honest. I usually just ignore this and find someone who really will help me. Or if it got really, really bad, I'd probably talk to the manager in the store. But I do sometimes get where people ignore me or they won't talk to me, I think because they might think that my tics are sort of a behavior that I'm choosing to do, or maybe I'm being obnoxious. I really don't know. I can't guess. Obviously, if they won't talk to me or share their thoughts, and if they don't want to ask questions, then I can't educate them. So that one's a bit difficult. So now that I've gone over some of the bad reactions I've got and how you might want to respond to them if you have Tourette's, maybe you don't have Tourette's or you're not disabled, and you're wondering how to react to someone with Tourette's or another disability. I'd say for the most part, treat us like normal human beings. That sounds really obvious, but it's something that a lot of people miss a lot. They think either, hey, disabled people need pity, or that we're all just these wonderful, amazing people, or, you know, Leanne begging for attention, and disabled people are just normal people who are just that disabled. It doesn't make us special or attention-seeking or anything like that. Leanne, we just want to live our lives, interact with you like a normal person would. Now, that's not to say that we don't sometimes need accommodations, or some extra thought might be needed for us to be included. And I would say, ask us what we need. Just ask us how we would like to be treated. Fidget. Because each of us are going to have our own individual needs. We each interact in a different way with regards to our disability. So sometimes you really do need to just ask us if there's anything to keep in mind. And this one's a bit personal to me. I'm not sure if everyone who is disabled will feel this way. Again, you really have to ask them. Fidget. But if you're curious about my disability, or any of them, not just the Tourette's, Fidget, but stuff like the ADHD, the depression, my fibromyalgia/chronic fatigue syndrome, any of that, just ask questions if you're curious. I'm always here to educate people, Fiji, and I'm very open about it. A lot of disabled people are very open about it, and it never hurts to learn. The worst response you can get if you ask a question, Fiji, is that they might not want to answer that. And that's fine. Don't push people into answering questions that they don't want to answer. Fidget, show that you're open about it, that it's not this taboo subject. Having said that, don't get too personal with your questions. I think you kind of get what I mean. If the question has to do with, OMG, how do you go to the bathroom? Or how do you have sex? Fidget, that's probably a bit too personal. Fidget, please don't ask disabled people that. Yeah, it's just awkward. The best advice that I can give with regards to how to react to any disability is to approach the unfamiliar with a curious and non-judgmental attitude. Hopefully I will see you all soon. I promise I won't go another long month without filming. That was terrible. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more of my face. And I definitely want to hear your thoughts about this. How do people react to any of your disabilities, and how do you react to that? Fidget, how do you want people to react? Did I miss anything? Fiji, do you have any extra thoughts? Do you have any questions for me? I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening. Bye!